Everybody's talking about what AI will replace. And look, it's a fair concern. People have real reason to be worried about what it means for their jobs, their industries, what's at stake, and what's really ahead of us. But I think it's also time that we ask the next question. What becomes even more valuable because of AI? I've been reflecting on this recently, and I think it's so interesting. AI allows us to pull information, compare, analyze, all within just 30 seconds, get 5 different perspectives, and yet somehow some questions feel more difficult than ever. That really stopped me for a second because I've been sitting in rooms where important decisions are made, whether it's boardrooms, investment committees, leadership team meetings, rooms where people are making really important calls on things that really matter. I still remember this one moment. I won't say where, but I remember it was 5 of us, senior leadership, sitting around a table and discussing a family business that had recently brought on a strategic investor. And separately from that, the market had turned and the business was now in real trouble. Now, what's interesting is everybody had exactly the same information. So the data was clear. It had been discussed. We had run the numbers. There was no arguing anymore about the data and the situation. And yet we just couldn't arrive at the same decision. This meeting went well into the evening because the question wasn't anymore what the data said. The question was what we were willing to prioritize. The family who had been building this business over generations, the new strategic investor whose capital was now also on the line, or the workers and the community whose entire livelihoods depended on this business making it. And so you can see that it wasn't a decision about data. It was really this element of judgment of what do we now actually do that we have that data and that we have to make a decision about priorities. All of them had real skin in the game. There was no version of that decision that didn't cost somebody something. None of that was on the balance sheet. And now in rooms like this, people increasingly are using AI. So they're even running all of those numbers through an AI model. They get a neat summary, a comparison, and yet they still don't land in the same place. I find it really fascinating because I think it tells you something. This was never about information. The hardest questions aren't difficult because we don't have enough information. They're difficult because we have to decide what actually matters the most. Growth or resilience? Manage risk or move fast? Win the quarter or build a decade? Those aren't data questions, and no amount of analysis will answer that question for you. AI can help us understand the decision, but it can't decide what matters the most. It can summarize, it can compare, it can even catch if you're missing something. And all of that is really valuable. But when it actually comes to making a decision, we still need a person to own the call. Not because the person knows more than the model, but because that was never what leadership is about. And honestly, that's what I keep circling back to with guests on my podcast, Catch the Upswing, that judgment, not information, is the real edge now. The future won't belong to the people who know the most. It will belong to the people who develop judgment to choose well when there isn't one obvious answer. So yes, keep asking what AI will replace. It is a fair question, but let's also ask the next question. What becomes even more valuable because of AI? For me, judgment sits right at the top of that list.